So today we're talking about intimidation. Intimidation is maybe not the label we put on certain behaviors, but when they get to be really repetitive, we can pick up on it, and it can condition us to actually lose our power. So I want to talk about what that looks like and give you some practical steps so that you can shift that dynamic for yourself and not choose those same patterns moving forward. And if you're new here, I'm Ketra Thompson. And what I do with my clients is I combine a very unique process of hypnotherapy so we can go back on the subconscious level and reframe those subconscious beliefs that are driving your unwanted behaviors, your attachment style, your unwanted feelings and patterns, and we shift it subconsciously, which is super powerful because the subconscious mind is controlling over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. And then we move into implementation so that I can coach you into implementing these steps in the real world by also calming your nervous system and using attachment style coaching, relationship coaching, and mindset. So it's a very unique process that is very holistic. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can check out the link in the description below where you can set up a completely complimentary consultation call with me. You and I can chat and we can get to the heart of what's going on, and I can make my best recommendations and help you get some clarity. So let's talk about some intimidating behaviors that sometimes are missed, and you're not really realizing that it's actually intimidation that's happening. And so those behaviors could be driving erratically, especially when they're angry with you, kind of scaring you a bit in the process, not listening to your request to slow down or please don't do that. They're just kind of going to push through and drive erratically anyway. It's very passive aggressive in some senses, but it's a little more overtly aggressive in that it's dangerous and it's creating fear in you. They can really raise their voice and use that technique as a way to bully you or to intimidate you so that you'll give them space and you'll back away. The biggest missed one, I would say, is withholding affection and stonewalling. Not communicating what's going on with them, not taking the time for them to tune into themselves so they can come back calmly and speak to you about it. They're pulling away and shutting you out like you don't exist. And John Gottman did a lot of research on bids, and what he found is the most successful relationships long-term answer the bids for connection. So a bid is when you mention something to someone or even with your body language. And so I remember a time with my very toxic ex, many times, but I would be driving or we would be driving and I would say, look at that cool barn. That's like super cool, or whatever we were driving by, and absolutely no response. He would not reply to what I said as if I didn't exist. And it happened a lot to the point where I stopped saying anything. I stopped trying to create connection and share my world or my view with this person because they wouldn't join me. And so that kind of stonewalling is sort of the flippant, thing that happens even when you're not in the midst of an argument. But when there is tension or an argument and there's stonewalling or withholding of affection, that's also really, really toxic and really, really difficult. Now, the other thing that can happen, and it kind of gets dismissed because it sometimes happens in the heat of an argument, is when someone basically says things like, well, you're lucky to have me. You'll never find anyone like me. Or they'll say things like, if you leave, you'll have nothing. I'll take everything. You'll be nothing. Or you'll never succeed without me. Or these threats that don't you dare do this thing because if you do, I'm going to make you suffer. And it's sort of belittling you for your choices in other capacities. Like maybe those subtle things would be you pointing out something you like and them making a smart ass comment about it. Like, who would like that? Or what you're doing for work, right? Like, who would pay for that? Who cares about that? Whatever, that's dumb. And it's these little comments about your choices that just make you kind of shrink down, shrink back, stop sharing, and pull away. And the other thing that can happen a lot is making fun of you in front of other people. I experienced all of these, but I experienced this one quite a bit as well. And in front of other people, you're not going to speak out and make a scene. You're going to be hurt on the inside, but you know you're not going to make a big deal about it. And they know that too. And so they'll make little jabs and jokes at you in front of other people, all in the name of fun. And sometimes we can sweep that under the rug, but it's really, really a bad sign. The other thing that happens a lot, these really missed intimidation behaviors, are not acknowledging your gifts, not acknowledging your talents, not saying when you are gifted and talented in something. And I remember this happening, like putting a lot of work into projects and showing my ex and him just going, yeah, not, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I can't believe you're so talented. And it could be something as simple as a huge, elaborate, like home project or craft project, or something as simple as cleaning out the pantry and organizing it, and then them just going, and walking away. Or they say something like, well, it must be nice to have time to do that. I'm too busy for that kind of stuff. Like making it look like you're so lucky you got to organize our home or do this thing that makes all of our lives better or more functional, as if they're sort of superior to you and they're degrading the things that you do. So you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, you don't feel acknowledged, you feel invisible in your own life, and you start shrinking back, pulling back, closing in, not sharing the fullness of who you are. And what this does over time is it's a repetitive pattern, and those repetitive patterns start to get ingrained. And this is what complex trauma is. It is the repetitive, ongoing behavior of the people around you. So oftentimes your caregivers, your parents, and your spouse, because these are the people who are around you a lot. If they have repetitive behaviors that keep coming at you, repetitive criticism, repetitive withholding of affection, repetitive dismissiveness, repetitive bullying or intimidation, they won't take no for an answer. It's going to be their way, whatever it is. It keeps coming at you so much that eventually it sort of breaks through the guard over your subconscious mind, and it affects the way you see yourself and the world around you. You start to doubt your reality. You start to doubt your gifts. You start to doubt your value and whether or not someone even wants to see you or know you. You feel like you've got to hold back on all these things. And so you can leave a relationship like that, and then you have to deal with the damage that's been done. And our subconscious mind is running over 95% of everything we think, feel, and do. And primarily, it's programmed from birth to age 7 when we're in the theta brainwave state, really a hypnotic state. And then after that, it gets really affected by a couple things: big traumas, unexpected big things, or complex traumas like this. And that further sort of dilutes reality inside our subconscious mind, makes us see things a different way that isn't necessarily accurate. We're not seeing our worth anymore. We're not connected to our empowerment or our vision. We don't have a spark for life, and we sure as hell aren't being creative in life, because creative energy comes once you do feel safe, secure, nourished, and rested. And so we end up becoming sort of a shell of who we were. And the way that we can deal with that is, we can do these external things. We can surround ourselves with really good people. We can do some self-reflective work, notice what's coming up in ourselves. But really the fastest and most effective way is if we go through that custom hypnotherapy process so that we can reframe the subconscious mind, because those beliefs are what's driving our behavior and our feelings. And if we don't deal with them, we're going to show up in our next relationship and we're going to shrink down, or we're going to make compromises too early, or we're going to say yes too quickly because we've been conditioned to do it. So when you've been through a long period of intimidating behaviors, you tend to cave really quickly. You tend to say yes. And I remember when I was breaking this pattern for myself in my old relationship, I finally said, I reserve the right to change my mind at any point, even if I've already said yes. Now, I'm one of those people who really believes, like, let your yes be yes and your no be no, and stand by it and keep your word. and stick to what you said. And so I'm all about integrity and follow through. And because I was so that way, I wouldn't let myself break my own word, but I was saying yes before I had put time and thought and energy into that response. And so in order to do that, I had to really come to terms with the fact that breaking my word to other people was nothing in comparison to breaking my word to myself, in betraying myself, in keeping these patterns in place. They had to be broken. And so I personally went through the hypnotherapy process that helped me do that subconsciously. And then I implemented it in real life by saying, I reserve the right to change my mind. And sometimes I did. I would say yes because that conditioning is fast. That makes you think, I better say yes just so I don't have to deal with the badgering, the bullying, the pushback over and over for hours or days to come. And so I would realize after that, and I would check in with myself, that I didn't really want to do that thing. I didn't really want to agree to that. I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the bandwidth, I didn't have the capacity, I didn't have the time, or I simply knew that it was going to be a nightmare of an experience. So I would go back and say, I put some thought into that, and I'm not going to do it. And it can feel scary initially to do that. But practicing that gives you permission to put yourself first. And in every healing process, you have got to put yourself first. You have got to decide that you are the only person that you're going to be charged with the care of for your entire life. Children grow up, they move out, people come and go from your life, but you are your top priority. You have to be your top priority. And that doesn't always mean in an entitled, selfish way where some of these toxic people behave like that. It means that you have to be willing to not care what other people think of you as much as you care about how well you're caring for yourself and whether or not you're betraying yourself. And being able to get to that point where you are so connected to your self-worth that you don't care what other people think of you. That is truly the most empowering place that you could live from, because then you'll allow yourself to make mistakes. You will allow yourself to fail, knowing that failure is a growth opportunity. That's how you grow. You don't stay paralyzed in this frozen position of never making a decision, of never shifting gears, of never going a new direction, because you know that you have allowed yourself to be human. And if other people have strong opinions about you taking good care of yourself, when you're not hurting them in the process, right? We're not physically harming these other people. Then if they have a strong reaction, that's about them. That's their trigger. That's like them saying, I don't care about you taking care of you. How selfish of you for wanting to take care of you. You should be taking care of me. And it's backwards, right? They're relying on someone else to manage their feelings, their emotions. And they should be looking at themselves and saying, okay, I can't get my need met with this person here. What does that mean for me? Where can I get it met elsewhere? And of course, in a healthy relationship, there is give and take. There is interdependence where you are taking care of each other, but not to the detriment of yourself. And so there's really 3 categories in life that require us to take good care of ourselves. That's our health, our financial stability, and our relationships. And if we let our partner be the totality of that relationship portion, then we aren't doing a good job. They are supposed to be at first a sliver of that portion, and then a little more, and eventually a big part of that portion, but never all of it. We have to be able to let other people meet the needs in our life. And so one of the biggest ways you can tell if you're with someone who has these intimidating behaviors or some controlling behaviors really is that they will not want you to allow other people into your relationship portion of your life. And they will rely on you heavily to meet all of their relationship needs. And it really goes deeper than that when we look at where intimidating behaviors come from, what they're about, why they're present, and the insecurities that are behind them. And it's never coming from a place of thinking that you are equal. It is always coming from a place of them thinking, I am above you. You need to fall into line underneath me. And if you don't, I'm going to make you pay the price. So, probably one of the most overlooked things is a raised voice. Now, we've all done it. We've all raised our voice. We've all been emotionally triggered and projected out and got defensive and said things we didn't mean. And then hopefully we were able to come back and repair and say, I'm really sorry. That wasn't about you. I was feeling this way or that way. I don't want to do that anymore. From now on, I want to do this instead. Like, we've been able to repair. But people who are chronically intimidating to others, they don't repair, they don't come back, and they sort of posture themselves over you. And a lot of men will do this. Now, I'm not saying women don't do it either. They do. But women and men tend to default in a different way to this because men typically just have more strength physically than a woman. And so they'll stand over, look down, puff themselves out a little bit, or they will raise their voice as a warning, like, hey, don't push me here. And there's no curiosity in that. There's no, hey, I want you to know I don't like that. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it this way. Can we talk about that calmly? Or can you tell me more? Can you help me understand? There's none of that. It's like, hey, I'm just really pissed. And this tone is an intimidation factor. And so if someone is doing that, changing their tone by raising their voice or just getting really like firm in their tone or changing their body language, even if they don't consciously know it, they are trying to intimidate you to shrink down, shrink back, and to basically shut up. And this is not sustainable behavior. You might have a cycle where this happens and then you guys repair in sort of a half-assed way. Changes don't really happen and it gets swept under the rug. And you think, well, everyone gets upset sometimes. But you really need to look for the patterns. Do they respect your request for safety in any capacity, emotionally, mentally, physically? Like the driving erratically thing, that happened so many times. I was just absolutely unwilling to drive in the same vehicle sometimes with my ex because the erratic driving was so terrifying. And my complaint about it would become the issue where someone would say, he would say, I'm always demanding too much. I'm always bitching about something. Nothing's ever good enough, whatever. Like it just became this huge fight about me asking, hey, please slow down. Please don't do this. And that becoming the focus. So that's a real sign of toxic behavior, is that when someone else makes your genuine concerns the problem, that changes the focus and it's very manipulative. So I just wanted to do this video to sort of point out these little things, these intimidating behaviors that can go unmet and unseen, and to give you the clarity about what they're going to do to you in the future. Because you're going to move on to another relationship, hopefully, if you are in or have been in one of these toxic situations, and you don't want those same patterns to be ruling that relationship so that what you're presenting isn't authentic. And then you end up with someone who never really sees the whole you, and you still feel unseen and you still feel unknown. And it's not because they aren't willing to see you this time. It's because you aren't willing to show any part of who you really are, because you're not connected to your self-worth and you haven't figured out how to rewire the subconscious programming and your nervous system in a way that can allow you to be fully present. And so that even means saying things when people say things that you don't agree with, being courageous enough to say, I don't feel that way. I don't see it that way. I don't think that's accurate. At least for me, I don't believe that. And questioning things instead of being scared to say that you don't agree with something that someone else says. That keeps you small and it keeps you invisible and it keeps you in that same loop, which you don't want to be in. And so when we say things like, well, that's just how I am, that's just who I am, that's not true. We are ever evolving people. We should always be growing and shifting and changing. Now, the core of who we are stays. We know that we're a good person with a good heart. We know like some very secure truths about ourselves. But the way we show up in the world very much depends on the choices that we make and whether or not we're able to catch ourselves in these patterns, reframe them, and show up differently so that we can change the way that we function. And those neural pathways in our brain can rewire to show up in the way that we actually want to be, our most authentic self that is ever evolving, ever growing, and hopefully full of a lot of self-compassion, because we are not perfect and we are not supposed to be. So if you'd like more help, I have this 12-week program where I do so much custom one-on-one work with my clients to get to the heart of that subconscious programming and help them in the implementation of these changes and that subconscious reframing. So you can learn about that in the link below. And you can also check out below, I have a completely free self-concept hypnosis recording to really help you build up your self-worth and your identity. And you can download that there for free. And you can also take my self-betrayal quiz to see if you are betraying yourself in your life. And it's a really quick little quiz that'll give you some very good information and help you really see the patterns in your life. So you can see all those links in the description below. And as always, if this content resonates with you, I really appreciate it if you'd click like and subscribe so you can be notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.